My name is Alex, I'm 32. For 15 years, I believed my younger sister, Chloe, was my best friend, my rock, the one person who would never betray me. I trusted her with my life, with everything. That was the fundamental lie I lived. It all shattered one quiet Tuesday evening in our childhood home's dusty attic. My mother, bless her clumsy heart, tripped over a loose floorboard. A hidden wooden box tumbled out, spilling its contents. What was inside? Not old toys, but stacks of faded letters addressed to Chloe, a photo of my supposed father with another family, and a birth certificate, with my name, but a different father. In the span of 5 heart-stopping minutes, my entire identity, my family, my past, everything I thought I knew, crumbled into dust. Downstairs, I could hear my mother humming softly as she prepared dinner, completely oblivious that her carefully guarded secret of over 3 decades had just exploded. Before we get into this, please take a moment to like and subscribe. But only if this story truly resonates with you. And drop your location and local time in the comments. I want to know where you are right now. With this fire, our life burned away. The wedding ring hit the charred pile of designer clothes with a metallic ping that sounded like the death knell of my marriage. 15 years of pretending Jessica's coldness was just stress from work. 15 years of believing her lies about late meetings and weekend conferences. And it all came down to a text message she meant to send to someone else. David's in the shower. God, I can't wait to feel a real man inside me again. His pathetic attempts last night made me want to laugh. That's what I read on her phone when it buzzed on our kitchen counter this morning. The message was meant for someone named Mark and her contacts, Mark Newton, her boss at Hartwell Industries. My name is David Grant, and until 3 hours ago, I thought I had a decent life. I'm 39, a project manager for Morrison Construction here in Pittsburgh. I fix things for a living. Buildings, plumbing, electrical systems. Turns out I couldn't fix the one thing that mattered most. I'd been standing there in our kitchen, coffee mug halfway to my lips, reading those words over and over until they burned themselves into my brain. Jessica was upstairs getting ready for another important client meeting that would probably involve Mark's hotel room and my wife's fake moans. The funny thing is, I wasn't even surprised. Deep down, I'd known for months the way she flinched when I touched her. The way she'd started working out obsessively, buying expensive lingerie I never saw her wear. The way she'd look at me sometimes with this expression of pure disgust like I was something she'd stepped in, but knowing and having proof are different animals entirely. I'd taken her phone and scrolled through weeks of messages, months, actually. The affair had been going on since last Christmas. While I was working double shifts to pay for her BMW and her weekly spa treatments, she was texting Mark about how much better he was than me in every possible way. David thinks he's so smart with his little construction projects. But Mark, you built an empire. David's hands are always dirty, but yours are so clean and strong. I fake it every time with David. With you, I don't have to pretend anything. Mark, when can we stop hiding? I'm so tired of pretending to love him. Each message was like a knife twist, but I kept reading. Call it masochism, call it thoroughness. Either way, I needed to know exactly how deep this betrayal went. The worst part wasn't even the affair itself. It was how they talked about me. Like I was some kind of joke, some pathetic loser who deserved to be cheated on because I wasn't rich enough, smooth enough, good enough for Jessica's refined tastes. Well, they were about to learn that this pathetic loser had a few tricks up his sleeve. I'd spent the last 3 hours methodically destroying everything Jessica owned. Not in a rage. That would have been sloppy. I did it with the same careful planning I used on construction sites. Every designer dress, every pair of shoes that cost more than most people's rent. Every piece of jewelry her mother had bought her to remind me how inadequate I was. All of it went into our backyard fire pit. The neighbors probably thought I was having a barbecue. If only they knew I was cremating my marriage. Jessica's car pulled into our driveway just as I dropped the wedding ring onto the ashes. Perfect timing. Through the kitchen window, I watched her check her makeup in the rear-view mirror, probably getting ready to lie to my face about where she'd been. She walked through the front door with that fake smile she'd perfected over the years. "Hi, honey. How was your day?" I was sitting at our kitchen table, her phone in front of me, screen still showing her conversation with Mark. "Interesting question, Jess. How was yours?" She glanced at the phone and her face went white. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "David, I can explain." "Can you?" "Because I've been reading your explanations for the past 3 hours, and they're pretty detailed, especially the parts about my performance in bed and how much you hate touching me." She tried to grab the phone, but I pulled it back. "Oh, no. We're not done yet. I particularly enjoyed the message where you and Mark discussed how stupid I am for not figuring this out sooner, though I have to admit you're both right about that one." Jessica's fake composure cracked completely. "You had no right to go through my phone." "I had no right." I laughed and it sounded bitter even to me. "Jess, you've been screwing your boss for 8 months and telling him details about our love life, but I'm the one who crossed the line." She tried a different approach, tears forming in her eyes. "David, please. It's not what you think. Mark and I were just what? Just having an emotional affair that turned physical. Just exploring your options. Just waiting for the right time to tell me what a disappointment I am." I stood up and she actually took a step back. "Good. She should be afraid. Where are my clothes?" she asked suddenly, looking around like she just realized something was missing. "Funny you should ask." I gestured toward the backyard. "Take a look." She ran to the sliding door and stared at the smoldering pile of ash and fabric. The sound she made was somewhere between a gasp and a scream. "You burned everything, David. Those clothes were worth thousands of dollars. We're being the key phrase. Now they're worth about as much as our marriage." I walked past her toward the front door. "By the way, I left something special on top of the pile. You might want to dig around for it." "Where are you going?" I paused at the door away from you. "I'll be in touch through my lawyer." "David, wait. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can what, Jessica? We can work on our communication. We can rebuild trust." I turned back to face her one last time. "Here's some communication for you. I know about Mark. I know about the hotel rooms. I know about every lie you've told me for the past 8 months. And here's what you can trust. I'm done being your pathetic husband who doesn't know any better." I walked out and got in my truck, leaving her standing in our doorway. In the rearview mirror, I could see her running toward the backyard, probably hoping to salvage something from the ashes. She wouldn't find much. I'd been very thorough. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "David, please come home. We need to talk about this like adults." I texted back. "Adults don't cheat on their spouses for 8 months. Adults don't mock their partners to their lovers. Adults don't lie every single day for the better part of a year. But you're right about one thing. We do need to talk. You'll be hearing from me soon." I drove to my brother Eddie's apartment across town. Eddie was 2 years younger than me, worked as a mechanic, and had never liked Jessica. He tried to warn me about her more than once, but I'd been too stubborn to listen. Well, Eddie said when he opened the door and saw my face. "Let me guess. You finally figured out what the rest of us already knew. Can I crash here for a few days?" "Of course you can. But first, tell me you didn't just walk away with your tail between your legs." I grinned for the first time all day. "Eddie, you know me better than that. Walking away was just the opening move." Eddie's apartment was a shrine to everything Jessica had tried to make me give up. Sports memorabilia covered every wall. Empty beer bottles served as decoration. And his couch had seen better decades. It was perfect. So, what's the plan? Eddie asked, handing me a beer and settling into his recliner. Please tell me it involves making that witch pay for what she's done. Oh, it does. But first, I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with. I pulled out my laptop and started typing. Tell me what you know about Mark Newton. Eddie's eyes lit up. The guy she's been screwing, I know plenty. He's married to some rich doctor. Lives in that fancy high-rise downtown. Drives a Mercedes that costs more than we make in 2 years. What else? Word is he's done this before. Cheats on his wife regularly, but always with women who work for him. Keeps it quiet, keeps it professional. Guy's a predator, but a smart one. I spent the next hour researching Mark Newton online. LinkedIn showed me his professional history. Facebook gave me family photos with his wife, Lydia, and a little more digging revealed some interesting details about his personal life. Mark Newton was 45, married for 12 years, no kids. His wife Lydia was indeed a doctor, a successful cardiologist with her own practice. They lived in a penthouse apartment downtown and seemed to have the perfect life, at least on social media. But social media lies, just like cheating spouses. I need to meet this guy, I said. What? Like, walk up and introduce yourself. Hi, I'm the husband you've been making a fool of for 8 months. Not exactly. I was already forming a plan. I need to understand what Jessica sees in him. What makes him so much better than me? According to her, the next morning, I drove to Hartwell Industries downtown. It was one of those glass and steel monuments to corporate success. The kind of place where people like Jessica felt important and people like me were invisible. I parked across the street and waited. At 11:47 a.m., Mark Newton walked out of the building, and I got my first look at my wife's lover. He was everything I wasn't. Tall, perfectly groomed, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my truck. Confident in that way that comes from never having to worry about money or job security. The kind of man Jessica had always wished she'd married instead of settling for me. I followed him to an upscale restaurant where he met 2 other businessmen for lunch. I couldn't get close enough to hear their conversation, but I could see him clearly through the window. The way he gestured when he talked. The way he smiled at the waitress. The way he checked his phone constantly, probably texting my wife. This was my enemy. This was the man who had stolen my life and convinced my wife that I wasn't worth staying faithful to. But as I watched him, I realized something important. Mark Newton had weaknesses just like everyone else. He was arrogant, careless with his phone, and clearly used to getting away with things because of his money and position. That arrogance was going to be his downfall. I spent the rest of the week learning everything I could about both Mark and Jessica's daily routines. She was staying at her friend Rena's apartment downtown, probably telling everyone what a terrible husband I'd been. Mark was maintaining his normal schedule, probably assuming I was just another humiliated husband who would quietly disappear. They were both wrong. On Friday evening, I got the break I'd been waiting for. I was sitting in a coffee shop near Hartwell Industries when I saw Mark's wife, Lydia, walk in alone. She looked tired, stressed, and kept checking her phone with increasing frustration. I approached her table. "Excuse me, are you Dr. Lydia Newton?" She looked up, surprised. "Yes. Do I know you?" "Not yet. My name is David Grant. I think we have something in common." "I'm sorry. I don't understand." I sat down across from her without being invited. "Our spouses are having an affair." The color drained from her face, but she didn't deny it. She didn't look shocked either. She looked tired, like this was a conversation she'd been dreading but expecting. "How long have you known?" she asked quietly. "About a week." "How long have you known?" "Months, maybe longer," she rubbed her temples. "Mark thinks he's so careful, but he's not. The late meetings, the weekend conferences that don't exist, the way he smiles at his phone. I'm not stupid. Why haven't you confronted him? She laughed bitterly. Because I'm a coward. Because it's easier to pretend everything's fine than to blow up my life. Because I kept hoping it would just end on its own like the others. The others? This isn't Mark's first affair. It's just the longest one. She looked at me with something like pity. Your wife isn't special to him, you know. She's just the latest in a long line of women who think they can change him. That should have made me feel better, but it didn't. It just made me angrier. What are you going to do? Lydia asked. I'm going to make them both pay for what they've done. The question is, do you want to help me? She stared at me for a long moment. What did you have in mind? I want to give them a taste of their own medicine. I want them to know what it feels like to be betrayed, humiliated, and discarded. I want them to lose everything they think makes them better than us. And how exactly do we do that? I smiled. Leave that to me, but I'm going to need your help with a few things. Lydia and Newton looked at me with something I hadn't seen in a woman's eyes for a long time. Respect. Tell me what you need. Lydia and I met the next evening at a quiet bar outside the city. She'd spent the day thinking about my proposal. And I could see the decision in her eyes before she even sat down. I'm in, she said simply. But I have conditions. Name them. Nothing illegal. Nothing that could hurt my medical practice. And when this is over, I want a clean divorce with half of everything Mark owns. Fair enough. What I have in mind won't break any laws, but it will break their spirits. I outlined my plan over the next hour. Lydia listened carefully, occasionally asking questions or suggesting modifications. She was smarter than I'd expected and more ruthless than her refined exterior suggested. You really think this will work? She asked when I finished. I think Mark and Jessica have been playing games with people's lives for too long. It's time someone played back. The first phase of my plan required getting close to Jessica's social circle. She'd always been obsessed with maintaining her image among her friends. And I knew that hitting her reputation would hurt more than any financial loss. Jessica's closest friend was Rena Caldwell, a gossipy real estate agent who lived for drama as long as she wasn't the target. Rena had never liked me much, but she'd always been polite to my face while probably talking behind my back. I called Rena on Sunday afternoon. David, is that you? Jessica told me you two were having some problems. Problems is one way to put it. Listen, Rena, I know this is awkward, but I need to ask you something. Did you know about Jessica and Mark? There was a long pause. David, I don't think I should get involved in so, you did know. Another pause. I suspected something, but Jessica never told me directly. How long have you suspected? A few months, maybe. She started talking about Mark a lot, and she seemed different. Happier, I guess. I thought maybe things were getting better between you two. Because she was getting what she needed somewhere else. David, I'm really sorry. If I had known for sure, I would have said something. She was lying, but I let it slide. Rena, I need a favor. I know Jessica is staying with you, and I know she's probably painting me as the villain in all this, but I want you to know the truth about what's been happening. I spent the next 20 minutes telling Rena selected details about Jessica's affair, carefully choosing facts that would make the best gossip, how long it had been going on, some of the cruel things Jessica had said about me, and most importantly, how Jessica had been lying to all her friends about her marriage. She told everyone that you were the problem, Rena said quietly. She said you'd become cold and distant, that you didn't appreciate her anymore. Did she mention that she was screwing her boss while I was working overtime to pay for her lifestyle? No, she definitely left that part out. I figured, listen, Rena, I'm not asking you to take sides. I just want people to know the truth before Jessica rewrites history completely. After I hung up, I knew Rena would be on the phone within minutes spreading the real story to everyone in Jessica's social circle. By tomorrow, the narrative would be completely different. Phase 2 required Lydia's help. Mark kept his personal laptop at home and Lydia had access to it. More importantly, she had access to his email accounts and social media profiles. "Are you sure about this?" Lydia asked when we met at her penthouse Tuesday evening. Mark was at another late meeting, probably with Jessica. "I'm sure. We're not stealing anything or breaking into accounts that aren't his. We're just documenting what's already there." Lydia led me to Mark's home office, a shrine to his own success with awards and photos covering every surface. His laptop was password protected, but Lydia knew the password, her birthday, even his infidelity was arrogant. What we found was better than I'd hoped. Mark had been careless with his digital footprint, keeping emails and photos from multiple affairs over the years. There were hotel receipts, restaurant bills, and most damning of all, a folder of photos and videos from his encounters with various women, including several recent ones with Jessica. "Jesus," Lydia whispered, looking at photos of her husband with my wife. "He kept trophies. Men like Mark always do. They can't resist documenting their conquests." I copied everything to a flash drive while Lydia watched the door. The evidence was overwhelming, not just of Mark's affair with Jessica, but of a pattern of predatory behavior going back years. "What are you going to do with all this?" Lydia asked. "I'm going to give Mark and Jessica a choice. They can end their affair quietly and face the consequences of their actions, or I can make this evidence public and destroy both their careers." "You think they'll choose quietly?" "I think they're both too arrogant to believe I'll actually follow through, and when they call my bluff, I'll show them just how wrong they are." The next morning, I sent identical emails to both Mark and Jessica from an anonymous account. "I know about your affair. I have evidence, photos, emails, hotel receipts, and much more. You have 48 hours to end your relationship and confess to your respective spouses or this evidence becomes public. This is your only warning." I attached one photo to each email. Nothing explicit, just Mark and Jessica kissing in a hotel lobby. Enough to prove I wasn't bluffing, but not enough to show my full hand. Jessica called me within an hour. "David, what the heck is this email? Are you threatening me? I'm giving you an opportunity to do the right thing for once in your life. You can't blackmail me." "I'll call the police and tell them what?" "That your husband has evidence of your affair and wants you to confess." "Good luck with that. David, please. We can work this out, Mark and I. It's not serious. It was just a mistake that got out of hand. A mistake that lasted 8 months. A mistake that involved you mocking me to your lover. A mistake that included detailed discussions of our private life." She was crying now, but I felt nothing. "Please, David. I'll do anything. I'll end it with Mark. I'll go to counseling. I'll make it up to you." "It's too late for that, Jess. You made your choice when you decided I wasn't worth staying faithful to. Now you get to live with the consequences." Mark called an hour after Jessica. "Listen, you pathetic little man. I don't know what you think you're doing, but you're playing with fire." "Am I?" "Because from where I sit, you're the one who's about to get burned. Do you have any idea who I am? What I can do to you? I can destroy your career, your reputation, your entire life with one phone call. Funny, that's exactly what I'm about to do to you. You're nobody, Grant. You're a construction worker with delusions of grandeur. Jessica was slumbing when she married you, and she came to me because she needed a real man. A real man who cheats on his wife. A real man who preys on his employees. A real man who keeps trophy photos of his conquests. Yeah, you're a real prince, Mark." The line went quiet for a moment. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want you to know what it feels like to have your life turned upside down by someone you underestimated. And I want you to remember this conversation when your world comes crashing down around you. I hung up and waited. 48 hours later, neither Mark nor Jessica had confessed to anything. They'd called my bluff, just as I'd expected. Time for Phase 3. The first email went out at 9 a.m. on Friday morning to every employee at Hartwell Industries, including the board of directors and HR department. The subject line was simple. Workplace harassment. Evidence attached. The email contained a carefully worded explanation of Mark Newton's pattern of inappropriate relationships with subordinates, backed up with documentation spanning 3 years, photos, hotel receipts, emails, and testimony from Lydia about Mark's history of infidelity. I'd been careful to frame everything in terms of workplace harassment and misuse of power rather than simple adultery. Mark wasn't just cheating on his wife. He was creating a hostile work environment and potentially opening the company to lawsuits. The second email went to Jessica's HR department at her company detailing her affair with a client and how it violated her company's ethics policies. The third email went to the Pittsburgh Business Journal along with several other local media outlets. Corporate scandals involving affairs and harassment were always good for clicks. By noon, both Mark and Jessica were calling me frantically. "You bastard!" Jessica screamed into the phone. "They suspended me pending investigation. Do you know what this means for my career?" "I know exactly what it means. It means you're finally facing consequences for your actions. I'll sue you for defamation. I'll take everything you have." "With what lawyer and what money?" "Last I heard, you were suspended without pay." Mark's call was more controlled, but equally furious. "You have no idea what you've just done," he said coldly. "I will destroy you for this. You're welcome to try, but you might want to focus on dealing with your own problems. I hear the board called an emergency meeting about you this afternoon. This isn't over. You're right about that. This is just the beginning." I hung up and called Lydia. "How are you holding up?" "Better than I expected. Mark came home screaming about you, but when I told him I already knew about the affairs and was filing for divorce, he deflated pretty quickly." "Any regrets?" "Only that I waited so long to do something about it. My lawyer says with all this evidence, I should get everything I asked for in the divorce." "Good. You deserve better than Mark." "So do you, David. So do you." That evening, Eddie and I were watching the news when the story broke. Channel 7 led with local executive suspended in harassment scandal, complete with file photos of Mark and mentions of the ongoing investigation. "Holy crap," Eddie said, raising his beer in salute. "You actually did it. You brought down the golden boy. This is just the first round." They both still think they can weather this storm and come out clean on the other side. What's next? Next, I make sure everyone they know understands exactly what kind of people they really are. Over the weekend, I created a comprehensive website documenting Mark and Jessica's affair. Not pornographic or explicitly vindictive, but a clear, factual timeline of events with supporting evidence. I registered the domain under Mark's name and made sure it would show up in search results for both of them. I also reached out to Jessica's other friends, Chelsea, Miranda, and Susan, with carefully crafted messages explaining how Jessica had been lying to them about her marriage while conducting her affair. The responses were swift and brutal. Chelsea called Jessica a selfish witch in a Facebook post. Miranda unfriended her on all social media. Susan, who had been Jessica's maid of honor, sent me a message apologizing for not seeing through Jessica's lies sooner. By Monday morning, Jessica's entire social circle had turned against her. The women who had once envied her perfect life were now gossiping about her downfall with the same enthusiasm they'd once reserved for other people's scandals. Jessica showed up at Eddie's apartment Tuesday evening, looking like she hadn't slept in days. "David, please. You have to stop this. I lost my job. All my friends hate me, and I can't even show my face in public without people staring. Funny how that works, isn't it? Actions have consequences. I know I hurt you, and I'm sorry. I'm truly deeply sorry, but this has gone too far. You're destroying my entire life. The way you destroyed our marriage, it's not the same thing, isn't it? You lied to me every day for 8 months. You mocked me to your lover. You made me feel like I was crazy for suspecting what was happening right in front of my face. You destroyed my ability to trust anyone ever again, but somehow what I'm doing is worse. She was crying harder now. David, I know I made mistakes. Mistakes? Jessica, you didn't accidentally fall into bed with your boss. You didn't mistakenly send him photos of yourself. You didn't accidentally spend months planning a life with him while lying to my face every single day. Those weren't mistakes. Those were choices. What do you want from me? What will it take for you to stop this? I want you to understand what you did to me. I want you to know what it feels like to have your life destroyed by someone you trusted. I want you to experience the humiliation and betrayal that you put me through. And then what? After you've destroyed everything I've worked for, after you've made sure I can never rebuild my life, then what? Will that make you feel better? I looked at this woman I'd once loved. This person I'd built my entire adult life around and felt nothing but contempt. I don't know, Jessica. Why don't we find out? She left without another word. I never saw her again. But I wasn't done with Mark Newton. Not by a long shot. Mark Newton had always believed that money and power could solve any problem. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The private investigator I hired found exactly what I'd hoped for. Mark had been using company funds to pay for his affairs. Hotel rooms, restaurants, gifts, all charged to Hartwell Industries as client entertainment expenses. It wasn't technically embezzlement since he was a senior executive with discretionary spending authority, but it was definitely a violation of company policy and potentially grounds for criminal charges. More importantly, it gave me leverage. I arranged to meet Mark at his office on Thursday afternoon. He agreed, probably thinking he could intimidate me or buy me off. Men like Mark never learned. Hartwell Industries' executive floor was all marble and mahogany designed to impress visitors with the company's success and stability. Mark's corner office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A view that probably cost more per month than I made in a year. Mark was sitting behind his desk when his secretary showed me in. He didn't stand up or offer to shake hands. Well, the conquering hero comes to gloat. Actually, I came to make you an offer. I'm listening. I sat down across from his desk and pulled out a manila folder. These are copies of your expense reports for the past 2 years, cross-referenced with hotel receipts and restaurant bills from your various affairs. Mark's face didn't change, but I saw his hands tighten slightly on his desk. You've been using company money to fund your personal life, specifically to pay for hotel rooms where you've been screwing your employees and other men's wives. That's a serious accusation. It's a documented fact. I have receipts, credit card statements, and testimony from hotel staff who remember you and your various companions. I opened the folder and spread out several documents. The Marriott Downtown March 15th charge to Hartwell Industries as a client dinner. But there was no client, was there, Mark? Just you and Jessica in room 1247. Mark leaned forward to look at the papers. What do you want? I want you to resign from Hartwell Industries immediately. I want you to publicly admit to your affairs and apologize to your wife and the women you've manipulated. And I want you to pay restitution to the company for every dollar you've stolen. And if I refuse, then these documents go to the district attorney's office, the IRS, and every major media outlet in the city. You'll face criminal charges for embezzlement. Your wife will take you for everything in the divorce, and you'll never work in this city again. Mark stood up and walked to his window, looking out at the city he'd once thought he owned. You know what the funny thing is, he said without turning around. Jessica wasn't even that good in bed. Enthusiastic, sure, but nothing special. Certainly not worth all this trouble. Then why did you pursue her? Because I could. Because she was married to a nobody like you, and it amused me to take her away from you because she was so desperate to trade up that she'd do anything I asked. He turned back to face me. You want to know what she really thought of you? She used to laugh about how pathetic you were, how you try so hard to please her, and she'd just lie there thinking about me. She said being married to you was like being trapped in a cage with a loyal dog. I felt the rage building in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. Is that supposed to hurt me? Because all it does is confirm what I already knew. That you're both terrible people who deserve each other. We do deserve each other. That's why this isn't over. Jessica and I were going to be together regardless of what you do. You can destroy my career, my reputation, my marriage, but you can't change the fact that she chose me over you. I smiled. Actually, Mark, I can. Jessica called me 3 days ago, begging me to stop my campaign against her. She offered to do anything, and I mean anything, to get her life back. Mark's confident expression faltered slightly. She also told me some very interesting things about your relationship, how you promised to leave your wife, but kept making excuses, how you told her she was special, but she found out about your other affairs, how you've been stringing her along with no intention of actually building a life with her. I stood up and walked toward his desk. Jessica doesn't love you, Mark. She loves what you represented. Money, status, and escape from her boring life with me. But now that you can't provide those things anymore, how long do you think her devotion will last? You're lying. Am I? When's the last time she returned your calls? When's the last time she initiated contact instead of waiting for you to reach out to her? Mark's face was pale now. She's just scared because of what you've done. She's scared because she finally sees you for what you really are. A predator who uses his position to manipulate vulnerable women. And now that your position is gone, what exactly do you have to offer her? I placed a business card on his desk. That's my lawyer's number. You have 48 hours to decide whether you want to resign quietly or face criminal charges publicly. Either way, your career at Hartwell Industries is over. I walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. Oh, and Mark, Jessica asked me to tell you something. She said to tell you that she's done playing games with boys and she's ready to work things out with a real man. It was a lie, but the look on Mark's face made it worth it. I left him standing in his office, staring out at a city that would never look at him the same way again. 2 days later, Mark Newton resigned from Hartwell Industries, citing personal reasons and a desire to spend more time with family. The company accepted his resignation and announced they would be reviewing their expense policies and conducting a full audit of executive spending. Jessica left Pittsburgh entirely, taking a job with a small firm in Cleveland where nobody knew about her scandal. I heard through mutual friends that she and Mark tried to maintain their relationship for a few weeks after his resignation, but it fell apart quickly once the money and power were gone. Lydia Newton got her divorce and half of everything Mark owned, which turned out to be less than expected once his legal bills were paid. She sent me a card thanking me for giving her the courage to stand up for herself. As for me, I moved out of Eddie's apartment and bought a small house on the other side of town. I kept working for Morrison Construction, got promoted to senior project manager, and started dating again after a year of being single. The anger that had consumed me for months gradually faded, replaced by something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I'd proven to myself that I wasn't the pathetic victim Jessica and Mark had made me out to be. I was stronger than they'd ever imagined, smarter than they'd ever given me credit for, and more dangerous than they'd ever dreamed. Some people might say I went too far, that revenge isn't the answer to betrayal. But those people have never had their lives destroyed by someone they trusted. Never had their most intimate moments mocked and shared with a stranger. Never had to rebuild their entire sense of self after discovering that the person they loved most in the world saw them as nothing more than an obstacle to overcome. Jessica and Mark thought they could take whatever they wanted from people they considered beneath them. They thought their money and status made them untouchable. They thought wrong. I didn't just get revenge on them. I taught them that actions have consequences, that other people's lives matter, and that sometimes the person you least expect can be the one who brings your whole world crashing down. And you know what? It felt pretty incredible.